right. It is 12 o'clock and I think we'll get started in about 1 minute. So hang tight. All right, it's 12:01, so I think we're just gonna jump right into it and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Trustees Conservation in Action webinar series. My name is Jen Klein, and I'm the Director of Outdoor Experience here at the Trustees. And I'd first like to thank everyone for joining today. And I hope everyone is as excited as I am to get an in-depth look at how we approach our recreation here at the Trustees. Each one of our 122 properties has its own unique history and treasures to offer, and our team of staff and many others, including partners who you'll meet today, play a role in bringing these special places to life. So today you're going to hear about the important work that we're doing around outdoor recreation, and these efforts would not be possible without the support of our donors. So an extra thank you to those that support the Trustees. So just a quick minute. So when the world went virtual more than 2 years ago, we launched new online programming like this webinar series, really in order to stay connected to our members, our visitors, and our supporters. And we've since found that our online webinar series really helped us reach a broader audience, including those who have gained a renewed appreciation for nature and getting outside due to the pandemic. So we hope that these webinars will inspire you to get out and explore a Trustee's property, help you learn more about new projects and initiatives that are happening here at the Trustees. We believe this work really will help get the next generation outside and build the Trustees of the future. So thank you again for supporting our mission to protect and share the special places that we love. As we get started with our webinar, if you have questions along the way, we'll ask that you please submit your questions via the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And then the presenters, myself, and our partner that will be joining us today, will have time for questions at the end of our presentation. And also next to the Q&A button, you'll see a live transcript option. So if you'd like to enable closed captioning to appear at the bottom of your screen, please select the live transcript and show subtitle. So thank you. And without further ado, we'll get right into our presentation today, which is all about our outdoor recreation experiences. So connecting people through outdoor recreation experiences here at the Trustees. So our presenters today, myself, again, Jen Klein, Director of Outdoor Experience here at the Trustees. And I'm joined by a friend and collaborator, Shagan, with Green Button Counseling and Consultation.
Hi, glad to be here.
All right, so we'll hear more from Shagan in a little bit, but we're going to dive right into a nice overview of what recreation looks like at the Trustees. So to guide us in our presentation today and really ground us with some critical questions that that I spend a lot of time thinking about in my department and throughout the trustees in our work. We think a lot about how we can leverage this moment to get more people enjoying the outdoors and connecting to nature in meaningful ways. And when we talk about this moment, we're talking about this moment in many different ways, from coming out of a global pandemic to facing issues of social justice, environmental justice, climate change, all these different things that are happening in the world, and ways that we can use that to connect to the outdoors. And then how do we turn the enjoyment and connection and engagement with the outdoors and nature into connection and engagement with our mission? And so that creates action, and that creates more advocates and stewards for our natural world, both within and on trustees' properties, but within individuals' own communities as well. And then how can we form strategic partnerships to help the trustees reach new audiences and be responsive to the needs of this moment? So recognizing that we can't do this work alone, and we shouldn't be doing this work alone. So what's the role that our partners play in this important work? So an overview of how we think about recreation here at the trustees, and why this work is so important to us. For starters, we have 122 properties across the Commonwealth. All of our properties have the outdoors inherently as part of them. So even our properties that are our cultural properties, our historic properties, every property has the outdoors, right? So how can we leverage that? And then we have these special places, and it's rooted in our founding and Charles Eliot's belief that people should have access to special places to enhance their physical health, their mental health, and their social health. Having experiences in the outdoors builds ecological literacy and sense of place and connection to community. And then having these experiences really builds on individuals' physical, mental, and social health and well-being. So it's inherently part of what we do, and it's so critical in the world that we live in today to be doing this work. So despite the fact that we've been doing this work for a really long time, there's definitely been some things happening in the world over the last decades or so that have really, shined a light on this work and why it's more important now than ever before. So we have the COVID-19 pandemic that we're still sort of in, that really brought more people to the outdoors than ever before. People that maybe inherently would not have identified as outdoor recreation enthusiasts. But when 3 years ago, the world shut down and you couldn't go to malls and we couldn't go to movie theaters and we couldn't go to schools, the one safe thing that was accessible and open and safe for everyone to do was to be outside, to go for a hike, to go kayaking, to go for a bike ride. And so as bad as the pandemic has been in many ways, it's been great for sort of building connection through recreation. And then, of course, over the last decades or so, and even more so now through the pandemic, right? So the pandemic has brought great things around recreation, and then it's brought some not so great things in other ways as well, where over the last few decades, we've seen consistent increases in rates of depression, anxiety, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and other health issues that outdoor recreational pursuits can help mitigate some of those. And then in the pandemic, and particularly around mental health issues, we've seen much larger increases in depression and anxiety. And we'll hear more from our partner Shagan in a little bit to really dig a little bit deeper into that and how the trustees are being responsive to that. Over the last 20 years, we've seen young people spending less and less time outside, more time on screens, more time in organized sports, less time in nature. But then at the same time, we see more increased care for the environment, especially by younger generations. So millennials, Gen Z, and even younger children care more about nature now than previous generations, which is incredibly exciting to think about. And so how can we leverage that in our work? And then we're seeing, before the pandemic, there was less engagement in recreation across the board here in the US. We were seeing declines in people hiking, kayaking, biking, camping, and then we saw that all go up in the pandemic. And then now that's all predicted to go back down. So as an organization, as a department head at the trustees, I spend a lot of time thinking about how can we not let that happen. We had people that found the outdoors and engaged with us on our trails, at our campgrounds, on our kayak trips. Now, how can we sort of keep them so that they don't just go back to, malls and shopping and things like that. And then of course there's ongoing lack of diversity and equitable access in the outdoors. And this has been a problem, not just for decades, but this is many, many, many years. And the trustees are spending a lot of time thinking about how do we make our spaces more accessible and equitable for all. And as we do this work, we think about it through a couple of different points of entry. So how do people come to the trustees and engage in our recreational endeavors? So one way that we do that is through passive visitation, curated experiences, school programs, and then we have sort of enterprise, our overnights, rentals, and retreats. And we'll sort of dig into each of these briefly. So we'll start with passive visitation. The next slide. There we go. So passive visitation. So this is really our visitors. This is by and large our biggest use for our recreational audience. These are individuals coming to our properties to hike or bike or kayak on their own. This is someone just after work every day, they take their dog, throw it in the car, and they go and have a nice walk on one of our properties. So we spend a lot of time thinking about how are we designing and managing these properties for that passive visitation. How can we offer recreational programming that might move a visitor from being passive to a little bit more engaged with the organization through a recreational program? How are we building out accessible trails for those with mobility challenges? And then how are we bringing more nature play experiences so that more kids can engage with play in the outdoors as well? And then our curated experiences, this is probably by and large what I think a lot of our donors and funders think about when they think about the trustees is all the amazing programs that we do every year. We reach thousands of individuals every year through our programs. So these are our guided hikes, kayaking experiences, even our arts-based experiences that tie in recreation. We have our mobile engagement unit that launched last year that brings pop-up outdoor recreation experiences to underserved kids in under-resourced communities. We're building out more programming around mental health, physical health, and wellness. And then how are we training our staff to really be the best that they can be in environmental education, outdoor education, and recreation? And then how do we use these programs and experiences to really expand the message of the trustees, especially around key initiatives around climate change and land conservation. And then we have our education programs. So these are, we think about this as outdoor and environmental education through recreation. So building out school partnerships, expanding out of school time program, and our summer camp. So this is getting kids outside, hiking and exploring and learning, right? They're having so much fun, and I call it like sneaky education. Kids are outside having so much fun, engaging in the environment that they may not even know that they're learning about the natural systems that they're within. This is a big part of the work that we're looking to grow over the next 5 years. And then finally, we have our enterprise, which is, this is our campgrounds, this is our rentals, this is, allowing people opportunities to come in. You want to try snowshoeing? I know we haven't had a lot of snow this winter, but we offer snowshoe rentals, we offer kayak rental experiences that are guided. And then we have our campgrounds where people can come and have those introductory outdoor experiences. And then as well as corporate retreats. We started doing a lot of that in the last year as well. And then, I just want to really say that partnerships are probably the most important part to all of this, that the trustees, we have amazing properties, we have amazing staff, but even with all the amazing properties and all the amazing staff, it's not enough. We can't do it alone. This work is so important, and we need partners to do it. That's the best, and to me, the only way to really do this work well. So there's a lot of great other organizations that are out there doing this work. So we're stronger when we work together. It makes the work easier for us. And, to be frank, the trustees aren't experts in everything, right? So how can we leverage the properties that we have and the experiences we can offer with partners that have expertise in particular areas to provide even more content rich experiences for our members and our communities. So over the last couple of years, we've entered into a number of strategic statewide partnerships to really help us do this work. And our partners range from national-based organizations to community-based organizations around recreation, around bringing in more BIPOC audiences to our properties. And what we'll hear about more today is, how are we really addressing more of our work around mental health, social health and wellness through our mental health partners. And so I'm going to stop there, and we're so fortunate today to have one of our partners joining us in Shagan. And so I'm going to turn it over to Shagan to share more from her perspective, what it's been like working with the trustees, and where she and her company have been instrumental in really helping the trustees move forward our work around recreation.
Thank you, Jen. Well, I am Green Button Counseling and Consulting. I'm Shagan. I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker. I've been working in Massachusetts for almost 10 years now. I have a busy private practice that does traditional talk therapy as well as consultations for families and programs. And I specialize in some experiential learning models, which, for those of you who don't know, experiential therapy and wellness is oriented around a participant-driven wellness experience. So it's not just talking about it. And I think that talking about it can be so helpful. And I was trained in talking about it, but I also find that finding ways to work on your own health and healing and well-being and management through having hands-on experiences and interactive experiences can be so valuable. And I think that it's not something that is readily available in our mainstream mental health menu through insurance companies and stuff like that. I think it's an amazing area that is growing. But it's something that I think still has to be really specifically sought out by participants. And so working with the trustees is one of the ways that I've been so excited to be able to bring that to a broader audience. I've recently done all kinds of things beyond the trustees, since I'm going to talk a lot about what I do with the trustees now, from webinars for lawyers that specialize in wellness and ethics and conflict de-escalation, as well as for educators around anxiety management, compassion, and even executive functioning. Consultations for camps and developing program staff for summer programs to be able to recognize and manage action steps around mental health crisis, as well as the equine assisted and animal assisted farm-based programs that I'm very passionate about, including a Pride Farm event, which is an open event for peer support on the farm with animals for our LGBTQ+ community, and anxiety and coping clinics with horses and goats and donkeys, full disclosure, also chickens. And mellow meadow yoga, which we just do in the field here on the farm, where the animals are sort of around, and sometimes the goats decide to interpose themselves into that activity, although we don't bill it strictly as goat yoga. But you know, they're little comedians of the animal world and they do what they want. So speaking of animals, I'm certified in EGALA, which is an Equine Assisted Growth and Learning Association model. It is an unmounted therapeutic model for both learning and clinical work, meaning there's no horseback riding. You work with a team of two, at least two, someone who specializes in mental health and is certified as a mental health specialist, and someone who is an equine specialist. I'm certified as both, but I still need a partner in order to be able to facilitate the model. And that background actually lent itself really well to some of the work that I evolved with Jen. So we had some thoughts about broadening access with regards to nature-based wellness and therapeutically oriented outdoor experiences. And the two-person model really lent itself well to what we were talking about. And so to that end, we've done some really cool work around developing our wellness walk program, which is a team-led model that also has at least two facilitators, usually me as a mental health specialist, and a trustee's guide. It's been thematic as well as general, and some of our themes in recent history were tools for seasonal affect disorder, where we hike and we talk about coping strategies and people share their experiences, as well as doing some grounding and mindfulness in nature. We had a great time with our Embracing Independence wellness walk that was around Valentine's Day and was a women's specific hike. We've had a social anxiety social hike to help people connect with others in an environment they feel more comfortable in than some other social ones. And Presence Not Presence, which was a wellness walk around the holidays that really oriented around finding mindfulness and grounding during that hectic season. All of these take place outdoors, which is of course in keeping with the trustees' goals. And it's a blend of nature-based learning, guided internal reflection, and social connection. I've really enjoyed helping to develop and provide these trainings to promote mental health and wellness, as well as facilitating the walks themselves, and acting in a consultant and modeling ethical and accessible mental health oriented outdoor programming. My role specifically as a mental health professional with these programs is to focus on maintaining a safe emotional environment. I really partner with my trustees guides to provide that physical environment of safety. And they're amazing at that, even knowing where we're going on the trail, which sometimes I can get distracted by when I'm focused on the human component. Communicating clearly with my partner, proactively anticipating potential challenges. Like if we are having a seasonal affect disorder themed hike, we're not working with a random sample of people. We're working with people who are interested in learning about seasonal affect disorder, whether that's because they struggle with that personally, or they have a loved one or family member or community members that are struggling with that, and it was something that was of interest to them. So anticipating the unique challenges that might arise for that demographic, and also what might be barriers or challenges to that demographic from accessing what we're offering, and working to figure out how to reduce, minimize, and remove those barriers to make people feel welcome and included and able to access what we're offering. I also do a lot of planning interpretive commentary and connecting nature and the external, either micro or mid-level environments that we're working in, to the internal environments of our own minds and the physical health and mental health components of being out in nature and how we're connected to the natural world, to sort of validate and soothe the ever-increasing rift between the expectations of a contemporary capitalist culture and us as beings who are part of the natural world. Community and connection is a huge part of this, and just being able to connect with other people who are taking time to intentionally show up in these spaces for these programs is really awesome. We have some images here from a variety of recent activities, including a training we did for East Boston clinicians who were interested in learning more about being able to facilitate this kind of thing in their own community, as well as various groups that signed up for other types of wellness walks with specific themes. Upcoming stuff that we're working on and we're very excited about and hope to be able to have you access in the very near future include our camping clinic, which is not only going to be about introducing people to the basics of camping and making sure they feel comfortable utilizing the equipment and being able to make decisions about how to pack for their own needs and be able to go and do this, because not everybody has the helpful friend who teaches them how to camp, right? And that can be a barrier to being able to access that, but also to address the mental health barriers that can go into effect that kind of make you decide, maybe not yet, maybe I'll wait, maybe, so being able to address fear, anxiety, even managing those quiet moments when you're alone in nature overnight, because sitting with our own thoughts is something that can be really difficult if it's not something we're routinely practicing. Animals on the trail is, of course, something I feel very passionately about because of my love of animals and my background with horsework. In the image here is my pony Kermit, who's my #1 hiking buddy. He's amazing. And hopefully we'll be able to have some more interactive, both animal and nature-based wellness programs on the trail in the coming year. Tailored hikes, whether it's a specific theme to an area of interest, like a seasonal affect disorder hike or an increasing independence hike or a managing anxiety hike, or a customized program for a particular group or organization that wants something to help promote leadership or connectivity among their staff, or work to facilitate wellness in the workplace, or have a relationship with nature in a different way. Peer support programs is something that I think is going to be increasingly both practical and necessary for mental health care. And I hope that it's something we'll see increasingly accessible in the future in all kinds of ways, because individual talk therapy just is not that accessible to people right now. There are long wait lists for clinicians. Clinicians are burning out. Insurance companies aren't reimbursing things. People aren't taking insurance. There are a lot of barriers. And the fact of the matter is that anyone who's struggling with mental health is not a broken piece of furniture existing in a vacuum that needs to be repaired. They're part of a community and a culture. And there's growing research around that. And so being able to facilitate wellness in trustees spaces and outdoor spaces where people can come together to help support each other and share their experiences in a facilitated and safe way, but in a way where we're helping each other. You're not going to an expert for assistance, I think is something that is going to be really powerful in the coming years. Staff training, whether it's for summer programs or even guides, or managers of trustee spaces, or even staff in other programs, to make sure that we are being conscientious about how mental health and mental health barriers impact access in our outdoor spaces, as well as teen programming and camp and program consultation. So very excited about all of those things. And I guess if anyone has any questions about any of this, we'd be happy to answer them. I think, Ivana, you might be managing the chat on that.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. I do have a question. What do you see as the biggest challenge or challenges as you think about expanding the trustees' recreation initiatives?
Yeah, I can take that. I think there's a couple challenges. I think the biggest is there's so many opportunities. So I think the challenge is, we have 122 properties across the state. And there's so much work to do in this space. So I think that the challenge that I have, and I spend a lot of time thinking about, is where do we start, and where do we put our resources in the short term and the long term. So I think that's one challenge, right? Because I think there's, as we talked about here, there's opportunities around our passive use and our campgrounds and our public programs and our school programs. There's just a lot of different entry points. And so where do we put our energy in the short term versus the long term? And then I think another challenge I think a lot about is just infrastructure. And when Shagan and I, partner on a lot of our programs and experiences, what dictates sort of where we do things and how we do them, a lot has to do with the infrastructure of the property itself. How big are parking lots, which properties have facilities, restrooms, things like that, that are going to make people feel more comfortable and safe in an environment. And that's especially true as we're thinking about introducing more audiences that maybe traditionally would not have identified as outdoor enthusiasts, that, not everyone wants to use the facilities in the woods. So generally parking lots, facilities, things like that is another sort of barrier that I think creeps up quite a bit for me.
Great, thank you. And another question, where do most of these activities take place?
Great question. Well, we have already hosted them at a number of the trustees locations in and around Boston, the greater Boston area. So we've been in Leominster at Doyle Park, and we've been on the South Shore in Dartmouth and Rocky Woods, Noon Hill, Noanette, and at Pierce Park in Boston. Am I forgetting some places, Jen? I feel like.
I think Copacabana Woods and Fall River.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
I think we might have hit all of them. So I think for our mental health stuff that we've been doing with Shagan, it's pretty much been in Eastern Mass, but about a dozen different properties at this point.
Yeah. And we've been doing that for almost 2 years now, which is pretty amazing when I think about it. And that we started it as sort of let's see if this works. We'll plan one of these and see how it goes, and then we were so excited by the response that we got that now it's monthly, if not more.
Yeah. For me, what makes these so special and is when Shagan and I were first sort of brainstorming about this, and we were just brainstorming about this at the barn one day. So Kermit the pony, I have Honor the horse, who's much bigger than Kermit, but they're friends. It was sort of in the pandemic, and I was just sharing one day of how I was recognizing that more and more people were coming out to the trustees' property to sort of take that classic mental health walk, because the pandemic was stressing people out and people were seeking the trustees. But how could we take what was happening and be a little bit more responsive to it, and not just have a wellness walk that I think a lot of different organizations and things already do, right? This isn't yoga, this isn't, forest bathing, and those things are all great. And I think people should definitely seek those things out. But what we were really hoping to do here is something that's like the next level, right? So that when people come, whatever, I hate to use the word baggage, right? But like whatever they're bringing with their self,
their priority concerns, if you will. Yeah.
we have somebody there on these programs and experiences that is trained and licensed in how to really help facilitate whatever it is that those participants need. And that's, I go back to that slide about why we use partnerships. The trustees, we are great at connecting people to the outdoors through recreation and through outdoor education. We are not licensed mental health providers, but we can partner with people that are to provide these great experiences.
And the trustees really lends itself to that concept so well, because the purpose of the trustees land conservation is for mental health and wellness for humans, you know, which is so cool. I mean, yes, it's conserving land, and that's very important and an absolute priority, and I'm here for it. But it's really cool to see that that is happening for the purpose of human well-being, which is kind of unique and amazing. And so I'm excited and feel honored to be sort of the mental health professional that gets to support these programs for the trustees. I sometimes joke a lot of what I do is preventing things from happening. So, you know, being well versed in sort of mental health crisis management so that I can keep an eye out for people who might be experiencing increases in distress or emotion dysregulation at any of these programs. I can utilize the same skills I would use in sort of group therapy to keep an eye on our participants and make sure I'm paying attention to their micro expressions, their word choice, their tone, their body language, where they're choosing to put themselves in the space of the group or along the hike, to make sure that I'm addressing those needs, which I think our guides do a really good job and very instinctively, but it's pretty cool to be able to take my training in those therapeutic models and really apply it to the trustees' outdoor recreation programs.
That's great. We're getting a lot of great feedback. One last question. How can people help or volunteer?
Yeah, so I can take that. So if you are interested in volunteering, and we can, you know, we're always looking for volunteers to help us, particularly with our guided hiking experiences, please, here we go. Here's the slide. With my contact information and Shagan's contact information, please reach out. We're always looking for help. My department, so outdoor experience with the trustees, it's a fairly small department that has a lot of reach within the organization. So we rely a lot on volunteer support. So please reach out if you're interested in volunteering.
Great, thank you. And I think that's all the questions we have for today. So feel free to go ahead and close. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, everyone. So yeah, thanks, I guess, so much for joining today. And I think this is the last webinar for the 2023 Conservation in Action series. For all the webinar recordings in the series, or to register for future ones. So I am told that the webinar series will be coming back next winter, but this is the last one for this winter. But if you're interested in all the recordings or watching this one again, because it was so awesome, go to thetrustees.org/webinars. And then again, I just want to say that everything that you heard about today from me and from Shagan, it would not be possible without the support of our donors, especially our top supporters, like our Founders Circle members. So if you're not a Founders Circle, not part of that yet, and you'd like to find out more about what that's all about, please visit our website or give us a call. But otherwise, thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you for investing in our mission. And we look forward to sharing more with you in the future. So thank you.
If you have any other questions for us or you think of something later, please feel free to reach out to us. And otherwise, hopefully we'll see you on the trail or at one of our programs.